Hello, all. Spot of Nerd here, and it is definitely time for a chin wag. Specifically, and fair warning, this won't necessarily be anything in relation to streaming, a television series, or a recent movie I've watched, but I want to start talking about kind of more personal things that maybe, hopefully, others might chime in, give me their take. Maybe they feel the same. Maybe it's kind of nice hearing what I have to say and you can relate so that you don't feel like you're maybe alone. Hence the title ish of this specific episode's podcast title. But I want to talk about loneliness. I want to talk about being alone, specifically in today's world. You know, I guess where this is coming from has a lot to do with recent events, not only with my own personal life, but of course with the world. And I guess very briefly, there is a little bit of the television movie that kind of taps itself into it because, I've mentioned I'm currently watching In the Dark. It's about the blind gal who she's in a drama series trying to figure out a murderer. And obviously, there's a whole bunch of side stories. But the bottom line is, she starts talking about when she's just by herself, she actually feels pretty good. She feels there. And believe it or not, when she's around others, when she's around people, whether friends, family, or strangers, that is actually where she feels more alone, more isolated than anything. And I actually really kind of related to that because there was a recent, obviously I have to be very careful with what I say, but let's just say allegedly I had a conversation with certain individual. Let's just allegedly say it was at work, you know? And sometimes these people in allegedly, they might be managers, I don't know. It's interesting how the way our society is now, that if you do go against the grain, and I am definitely that person that goes against the grain. I live in Seattle, Washington, so if you want to talk about being alone, try being a right wing conservative in Washington. Holy shit. Specifically Seattle. Now, we don't need to go down it, but I will go down the path that if you look at the maps, technically, if you took Seattle out of the equation, Washington is a red state. Just the the statistics, the facts don't lie. If you look at the districts, you look at every county, the only reason Washington is a blue state technically is because of King County. So, but that is by and the by. I just, me, I always like to point out facts because today's generation doesn't understand that facts equal facts. So, again, just kind of going back to the loneliness, the alone aspect of that, you know, I've recently had several conversations with individuals about, and one was specific to, this person knows a bit more. I mean, I definitely keep to myself a lot, but they know a little more in terms of my beliefs and opinions, etc. And they asked me flat out, they said, what is it like living in your world? And what they're referencing is because obviously politics and viewpoints, etc. And I do believe this was just a genuine curiosity. This wasn't a attack or anything. Trust me, there have been numerous occasions where I've been attacked from coworkers, from the public, everything in between, just because of a different viewpoint, and that's again, we'll go down that in this episode, we'll go down it in many episodes in the future, those roads. But coming back to this question, yes, it is extremely lonely to be where I am at. Now, I have discussed prior episodes that I am definitely in a better place, I believe, because, what is that phrase they always say? Um, in order for me to get here, I've had to realize that the only reason I am here is because I am truly alone. And referencing that meaning, you know, I don't have any backup. I don't have support. I don't have friends or family that are going to basically come to my back and support me. I've obviously, again, been very real and very forward in the depression and the suicidal aspects. Now, I know those are very serious, very heavy subjects, but without going into too much detail there, I have flat out told family and friends just how far those thoughts go with me. And you would think, I mean, again, maybe this is just me. You would think if I were to tell you some pretty deep, dark things that you might check up on me regularly. And I've mentioned this before. I'm not looking for the victim card. I'm not playing my violin. I'm simply just expressing what we're supposed to do, I guess, today, as the society says, you should be more open, you should be more real, so on and so forth. So I do actually do that more. Obviously, even just with this podcast alone, I express that I am a Trump supporter, I am a conservative, etc. I go against the grain in every aspect of what society tells you should be. And if you don't like it, then that's your problem, not mine. So it's interesting when we have these conversations, and maybe if you are similar in my boat, maybe you've had them yourself, but it's very again, if there's ever a pause, it's just because I want to make sure I verbalize this properly without getting fired. But what it really comes down to is I do I do feel like I've kind of accepted the way things are and how things will be in relation to many aspects of life. And what I'm trying to get at is I'm not trying to say that I am better than most people or ahead of anybody, etc. But I do think I'm very much empathize more when it comes to people in general. So, as an example in that respect, I am surrounded by people with very different viewpoints than myself. You could use such topics as the Roe v. Wade. You could use topics as, um, voter ID. You could use the border issue, the war effort, um, etc., so on and so forth. And I am probably hourly basis either being told indirectly or directly about how much of a horrible person I am. So it is very lonesome, I guess. I am definitely not somebody that's going to go home and cry myself to sleep because of these situations. So that's why I just want to make it very clear. I'm not talking about this subject to ask for a pity party or woe is me. I'm simply talking about this because I really think it is important for people to listen to things, specifically my story, in regards to you promote what society believes to be inclusion, diversity, equity, etc. But you actually do the complete opposite. through the words that you speak. And, I kind of sarcastically laugh whenever I have these conversations or whenever I hear this feedback from either coworkers or the public or whoever it might be, friends and family, because it's just proving my point that technically, and this is the wrong way to say it, so I don't mean this literally, but it's almost above me, if that kind of makes sense, because I don't look at somebody that has a different viewpoint than myself, and I don't think of them as lower. I don't think of them as higher. I don't think of them as lower. I just simply see them as somebody that has a different viewpoint. Obviously, I can disagree to that viewpoint because we live in America where we have freedom, specifically the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. You're allowed to hate me. You're allowed to wish death upon me. That is your choice. But at the same time, I'm not having those same viewpoints just because of a difference of opinion. And I think that is where that loneliness comes in. The alone, huge amount of aloneness comes in, if that's a word. I don't know if aloneness is a word, but um, so yes, when people ask me those questions, I tell them flat out, it's extremely lonely. I don't have anybody to call. I don't have anybody to text. I am not on a Friday or Saturday night. I'm not hanging out with anybody. And the older I'm getting, the more I'm starting to realize why I did not figure this out sooner. Because I've mentioned this before, but the amount of time and energy I have put into other people and other things instead of myself, I have lost decades probably at this point. And again, no pity party. I know this sounds like I'm playing the world's smallest violin, but I just want to make sure that if somebody out there is listening, maybe you're younger than me, older than me, somebody, whoever you might be, with a similar viewpoints like I have, what I'm trying to get across to you is that you are not alone, and I think that's the biggest piece to grasp sometimes. I look at my situation and I think about, when I do go down those dark paths with my depression, most mornings I wake up incredibly depressed and very much, I feel like I'm in prison. I really do sometimes. I really feel like I am stuck in a prison with no way out because not only because of my health issues, but because of the financial situation. Obviously, we all know the world is going down quicker than a toilet, um, with inflation and raising prices on every aspect of your life. So it's just incredibly challenging to make that leap. I did eventually I will actually want to talk about it more in depth, but I did make a leap literally about 1 year ago. I headed out to Texas because I genuinely wanted to change my situation. You know, I grew up in Washington. I came back for a very lovely lady, and things didn't work out there and got trapped here. So I've basically leapt. I just took a giant leap and went to Dallas. And we'll go down that story later, but it lasted about a week before I had to come back because I didn't realize just how it was one of the most horrible, if not the most horrible things that has ever happened to me. But at the same time, it was also the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me. It's one of those life moments where I actually, for the first time in 35 plus years, realized just how alone I am when I went to Texas because I went to Texas and I wasn't with anybody in a relationship sense. I wasn't speaking to my father. I haven't spoken to my brother in God knows how long. Obviously, I have a pretty good relationship with my mom, but that's it. So when I went, I basically just panicked. I had this complete and absolute mental breakdown, really based off the fact of all my health conditions, because I didn't look into, when you change states, medications, transfer, blah, 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 blah. So I own that piece of it. But the upside is it really did show me how alone I really am, because that way, when I do it next time, and there will be a next time, I now know what I need to face. And the biggest hurdle that I face, of course, will be the anxiety of that loneliness, because once I go out and I leave, this time I'm going to do it, and I need to do it for good, because when you start doing the politics, when you start incorporating the societal norms, the agendas, everything in between, that the media, the evil garbage media tells you what is normal, you need to make the change. And it's so cliche that you can taste the throw up in your mouth, because I'm the only one that can do it. So I'm the only one that can break out of this prison. I'm the only one that can move to better my situation, to be surrounded by people that do have a similar mindset. So, and that even goes in relation to work, I am grateful for my employer. They do provide a lot. They provide good benefits, pay. I do enjoy the work I do. But I do have to say that a lot of what, they stand for, I think is not necessarily true to light, I guess is a way to phrase it, as I've discussed just now, or even just in the past, because, I've never felt more alone. Anytime I go into work and I'm surrounded by people, whether coworkers, the public, acquaintances, friends, etc., I do not feel like anybody has my back. And I can give you, maybe I'll see if I can word it somehow better, but I've had many conversations about certain things. We've talked about wearing clothing that has the American flag on it, and it's incredible what kind of feedback I get revolving around that, because a lot of the time I'm being put down for such items. And it's, again, it's a very, I got to be very careful how I word that, but the bottom line is, you look at the way society, again, with the inclusion and diversity, yes, those are good things, but we also need to remember that inclusion and diversity does mean everybody, not just what you're being told is right or wrong via Twitter, via the news, via whatever you want to call it. Because the bottom line is, and I will just say this separately amongst everything else that we're discussing right now, wearing something that has the American flag on it is showing pride for your country. It's showing pride for the American freedom. It's showing pride for the veterans, the men and women that have sacrificed their lives, their limbs, their mental capacities, so that you literally can hate me for that viewpoint, so that you can have the hatred that I'm wearing something that has an American flag on it. Don't forget that. I think that is what is so important and needs to be said out loud nowadays, is if you are offended by an American flag, you're only allowed to be offended because somebody sacrificed either their life or their something, body, limb, mental capacity, so that you could have that offensive hatred towards it. Think about that for a second. Really take a step back and think about that. I wear it because I support those people that sacrifice day to day, whether overseas or in this country, to make sure that we're safe, that we have the freedoms that we have, so that we can live the best lives that we can. And again, that's just one example of many I can provide, but it contributes to that loneliness, because now I'm able to flip it around and see it as a good thing, you know? All jokes aside, they say that the older you get, the more alone you want to be. Sure, in your 20s, you want to party, you want a club, blah, blah, blah. Maybe in your late 20s, you kind of you turn into a fuck boy or whatever you want to call it. And, in your hopefully late 20s, 30s, you get married, you settle down, da, 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 da. Frankly, for me, it's just, I like being alone because I don't really want to have to waste any more of my time or effort into things that just don't matter. And yes, that does include relationships and friends, family as well. Now, there's so many roads we could go down on that because sure, would I love, I've said this before, would I love to be in a relationship and married? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? I would love to have met the love of my life and settled down and watch movies together and everything in between. And I don't know, maybe that will happen. I know it sure as hell ain't gonna happen in Seattle, but I have to hold on to that hope, you know? It's extremely probably it's some of the hardest things I've had to do every second of every day, but I do think it is possible. So, you know, kind of just, I guess, concluding this podcast, and trust me, we will be talking about this a lot more in the future. I think this is just kind of a good stepping stone, first step into opening the floodgates all about loneliness and being alone, specifically in today's world, no matter what side you're on, no matter how you're doing or what situation you might be in, because it is a real problem. You know, just take me out of the equation. People are more alone now than ever. And it should be the opposite where we need to come together and we need to change it. You know, we need to get folks help that need it mentally, physically, everything in between. But I do really want a heavy focus on that mental health. You know, we need to get people the help they deserve and they need. Um, you know, for myself, it took an entire year after the most horrible thing in my life for me to kind of snap back into it, to start taking a step forward and realizing that, you know, I can wake up every morning and hate everything and be depressed, but I'm the only one that can change it. And dear God, I hope I do one day. I hope very, very soon I will change it. You know, I'm gonna have to make that leap again, and it's the scariest thing I'll ever do. But you know what? I also don't want to live the way I am. I don't want to live alone. I don't want to live feeling like there is nobody. I want to have friends. I want to have people that I can hang out with and, you know, not just because I'm tired and I want to go home and watch a movie, but no, I want to be able to be like, hey, it'd be really great to go hang out with XYZ, or, you know, it'd be great to come home to that special person. But it needs to be something I need to do. It needs to be something I need to put effort into. Right now, I'm just kind of just sitting in that alone space, which is quite frankly a good space to be. Just, you know, again, we're all in different places in life, mentally, physically, etc. And I think right now the best place for me is to be alone. It's the last year I've mentioned before. It is allowing me to discover things I never knew before about myself. And the benefit of it really is it has taught me that I have wasted a shit ton of my life giving to others and giving a part of me to others. And I am never doing that ever again. Um, that's again a road we can go down, another path, another time, because it is gonna be fucking impossible for somebody to break my walls down. But I give you full support and full honors if you can get in there. If you can get into if you can break down my walls and really get to know me, I think you'll be pretty surprised, and hopefully it'll be pretty awesome because you get to meet me and you get to know me, and it's just, I mean, who wouldn't want to know me, right? Who wouldn't want to be friends with me? Let's be real. Come on. But yeah, anyway, there's a lot of what we're talking about right now. Lots of different roads we can go down, and we will explore these roads, I promise you, in future episodes. So I do appreciate everybody for listening. I genuinely appreciate those who still support this channel and the podcast, YouTube, etc. Please share this stuff out to your friends, family, strangers. Subscribe where you can, comment, like, follow, everything that I will repeat for every single episode here on out because that's what you're supposed to do. to get the message forward, I think is what they say or something. But, hopefully maybe even just with this episode, maybe you found something that you felt, you know what? I felt that. You know what? I see where he's at. I see where he's going with that. Or maybe if you do think something completely opposite, maybe you can at least see my perspective and take that step back, like I've mentioned, and go, huh, maybe I do need to be careful what I say around people, that might have a different viewpoint because you know what? Wishing hatred and wishing death on people, just FYI, is not the right way to go about it. Because when you are thinking those things, you're the one that looks like the ass, not me. In case you were wondering, you're the asshole in that situation, not me. So, something to think about. Food for thought. But thank you all so much for listening. We will see you guys next time. All right, later, y'all.